A week ago today, little James Bulger disappeared while shopping with his mother in the Bootle Strand shopping precinct. 2 youths were seen walking him away. His body was found 2 days later on a railway line in Walton near Liverpool. Today, the police investigating the murder announced a breakthrough in their inquiries.
Following the abduction of James Bulger from the New Strand shopping precinct in Bootle on Friday the 12th of February 1993, and the subsequent findings of his body on the railway line in Walton on Sunday the 14th of February, 2 boys aged 10 years from Walton area have been arrested and are currently being interviewed by Merseyside police at police stations on Merseyside. It is stressed that the boys are currently being interviewed in relation to these matters. At this stage, it is not known if charges will follow.
Today's announcement came after hundreds of calls to the incident room overnight, following the first screening on television last night of an enhanced video photograph of the 2 youths seen with James. It can no longer be shown for legal reasons. More than 40 names were generated, but 3 kept cropping up, police said. However, one report says the arrests of the 2 10-year-olds were actually made yesterday morning in secret. Police apparently keen to avoid the disturbances earlier this week when a 12-year-old boy was questioned, then eliminated from inquiries. At lunchtime, Superintendent Kirby was asked whether it was possible that 10-year-olds would appear in court facing a charge of murder.
Yes, I think in all probability that will be the obvious final outcome. I'm still waiting now to speak with the Crown Prosecution Service and other legal representatives to find exactly what course of action we will have to be taking.
The law relating to children differs from that for adults. 10 is the youngest age at which a child can be charged with any crime in England and Wales. In Scotland, it's 8. Below such an age, the law considers children unaware of the consequences of their actions. Even between the age of 10 and 14, the prosecution must still prove knowledge of serious wrongdoing. If convicted, the child can be detained at a special treatment centre for an indeterminate time. Lawyers say the presence of a guardian during interview is an important safeguard.
A child should be always accompanied by a responsible adult to ensure that the interviewing, for example, is carried out fairly and correctly, and perhaps to make any objections to questions which an adult could make for himself.
The law makes special arrangements aimed at protecting children's rights. Under the 1984 Police and Criminal Evidence Act, a child must be accompanied by an appropriate adult, such as a parent, guardian or social worker, during questioning in police custody. That person can advise the child on answering questions, and any statements would have to be signed by him or her. The child also has the right to free legal advice. Police can detain the child overnight, but normally he or she would be put in a secure home under the care of social services.
The main problem that police face is that children are very suggestible. This means that the police must be very careful not to lead them. On the other hand, if they do not lead children in their questioning, the children very often don't give an answer at all. This means that when the case comes to court and the jury see or read what the children have said to the police officers, they very often place no reliance at all upon that evidence because they know how suggestible children actually are.
Tonight in Liverpool, a special memorial service is to be held for James Bulger. Not since the Hillsborough disaster has the city seen such a collective feeling of grief.
They acted together, but were they alone? The nagging doubts that someone else was involved in the plot to kidnap Shannon Matthews have resurfaced, along with the question, has somebody escaped justice?
A number of people have been arrested, and some of those have been re-arrested throughout this inquiry. All of the available evidence has been examined and closely scrutinised by the Crown Prosecution Service. There is no evidence whatsoever for other people to stand charged at this time. Clearly, if fresh evidence comes to light further down the line, then that will be reassessed by ourselves initially. Then we will, if necessary, pass it on to the Crown Prosecution Service. But at this moment in time, the case is closed.
The senior detective was criticised in court for earlier comments in which he described Karen Matthews as a woman of pure evil. He said that he had no reason to change his view. The woman, capable of turning on tears at will, remained stony-faced and emotionless as sentence was passed. Unusually, the judge himself, Mr. Justice McComb, expressed the view that others were probably involved. He said it must be doubtful whether they could have conceived or continued these offences without the assistance or connivance of others. And it is an opinion shared by the community which once supported Karen Matthews.
Everybody knows we haven't heard the full story. Everybody knows we haven't. He's just turned around and he said that, you know, sat on his bench, he's just turned around and said this is not the full story. So obviously it's not the full story, and if Karen ain't going to break and say what the full story is, what can us little people, if you like, do to help her?
The belief that Karen Matthews may be protecting relatives was strengthened by the revelation that her daughter Shannon told West Yorkshire detectives that while she was being held captive, she spoke to other members of the family. 9-year-old Shannon went missing from home at Dewsbury Moor in February last year. One of the largest police operations of its kind began following an emergency call to the police from the schoolgirl's mother.
Police emergency? Hiya, I want to report my daughter is missing, please. Right, how old is she? 9.
For the 24 days of her daughter's disappearance, Karen Matthews kept up the pretense that she was a mother distraught because of her child's sudden abduction.
The investigation into the death of 25-year-old Joanna Yeates is now a murder investigation, and I am leading that murder investigation. As you know, the post-mortem examination has taken longer than usual because of the frozen condition of her body. The pathologist completed his examination last night and concluded that the cause of her death was compression of the neck, in other words, strangulation. As a result of the findings of the post-mortem, we believe that Joanna's body has been in the roadside verge off Longwood Lane, Fayland, for several days before being discovered on Christmas morning. I'm keen to hear from anybody who saw or heard anything or anyone acting suspiciously in the Longwood Lane area, particularly the area near to the entrance of Durnford Quarry over the last week, but in particular the weekend of Friday, December the 17th to Sunday, the 19th of December. This was the weekend when we experienced heavy snow in the area.
Starved to death by her mum and stepdad, Angela Gordon has been convicted of killing her daughter Kyra Ishak. Cleared of murder but convicted of manslaughter after her prosecutors accepted her defence of diminished responsibility. Kyra's father, Abu Zair Ishak.
When you have professional doctors with so much experience reduced to tears in the dock based upon what they've seen with respect to Kyra, it's moving, you know. And I mean, I haven't personally seen the pictures and I couldn't look at them.
Kyra was deliberately and secretly starved by her stepfather, Junaid Abu Hamza. He's schizophrenic and believed she was possessed by evil spirits. Gordon colluded with him.
This child suffered serious and significant harm and abuse. It's unfortunate, it's very unfortunate that murder was not the result.
In December 2007, the 7-year-old was taken out of school. 5 months later, she was found by paramedics. So thin, her body mass could not be measured. Both Gordon and Abu Hamza are due to be sentenced on Friday.
For too long, Tracy Connolly and Stephen Barker enjoyed the protection of the courts. But baby Peter's mother and her boyfriend can finally be named as the couple responsible for the death of an innocent. It was here at this North London hospital where baby Peter's short life ended and where the full horror of this tragic case unfolded. He was admitted to accident and emergency in August 2007 with multiple injuries, including a broken back and fractured ribs. Inflicted by a man who should have cared for and protected the toddler. But then Stephen Barker had a history of sadism, of torturing both people and animals. Abused and brutalised himself as a boy, Barker developed into a classic bully. He had a fascination for Hitler and kept a collection of Nazi memorabilia, including helmets and daggers. Haringey Council have vowed to learn the lessons of this tragedy, where baby Peter's abuse was never uncovered, despite numerous visits by social services and the fact he was on the at-risk register. But Tracy Connolly knew how to work the system. She grew up around social services. Her mother suffered from drink and drug problems. Her biological father was a sex offender and absent for most of her life. And at 12 years old, Connolly was sent to boarding school for delinquent children. This was Tracy Connolly's wedding in 2003 to baby Peter's father, but she would soon begin cheating on him with Stephen Barker. Connolly and Barker moved here to Tottenham, where the abuse began. His mother did her best to hide his injuries, smothering his face with chocolate on occasions to cover the bruises. Neighbours here remember little of the family who kept such a horrific secret, until the day an ambulance pulled up outside the house.
Walked down to the corner to have a look, and I saw the ambulance man rushing out, cradling the baby in his arms and taking it into the ambulance. It's shocking to know that these sort of things go on, you know, in this sort of area that you're living in.
Tracy Connolly told friends that initially she was happy living in this house with Stephen Barker, but things changed dramatically when Stephen's older brother, the third defendant in this case, moved in here. Jason Owen had a long history of deceit. He had previous convictions for theft and arson after setting his home on fire to claim back the money. He was on the run from the authorities with his 15-year-old girlfriend. And although he was bailed following baby Peter's death, he was rearrested after applying for a passport. We can also reveal that the brothers were arrested in the mid-90s over allegations they bullied and assaulted their elderly grandmother at this house in Kent to try to get her to change her will. But the 82-year-old died of pneumonia before her case could be brought to court.
We'd heard that she had been terrorised by the boys. They'd bought Guy Fawkes masks that stood at the window with them. They'd frightened her. They'd locked her in a wardrobe looking for her will. They'd locked her indoors so that she couldn't go out. Then they forced her to go out to the bank to draw money out for them.
In a cemetery in North London, a tiny gravestone bears the simple first name initial of an anonymous victim. But the lifting of this court order now allows baby Peter Connolly the dignity of his name back.
This is Woolwich, famous for a building society and not much else, but now the location of a very silly jewellery store theft incident. This chap is one of those local hero types, a bystander who bravely steps up and rights society's wrongs, in this case by trying to perform a civilian arrest on 2 jewellery thieves, and in the process gets battered with a bag of sparkly brooches. Now the mayhem begins. A second bystander does a hilarious comedy trip. One of the thieves loses his trousers, and this man, who's been looking on like some strange street violence train spotter, makes a spectacularly unconvincing attempt to be a hero of the people by trying to trip the thief and nearly falling over himself. Onlookers aren't sure what to be more shocked about, the stricken man on the floor or the remarkable volume of the thief's underpants. When these cheeky crooks got away with that mess losing only a pair of trousers, they must have been, as Woolwich local hero Ian Wright would say, creaming. After a quick battered sausage, the overexposed robber and his fully clothed accomplice disappear into the night. One left nursing a bruised butt, and the other trying to remember if he's still a 32 long.